Every story has an author. Every author has a story. Join us for off-the-page interviews, inside stories, and a look into the world of publishing. This is Page Turners. Welcome to Page Turners, presented by the agency at Brown Books. I'm Hilary Kennedy, and my guest today has been featured in Stars and Stripes magazine, Newsmax magazine, Liberty Watch Radio, and then recently donated a Huey helicopter to the Oklahoma History Center to honor the men and women who fought the war in Vietnam. And it all began with the book Black Cat 2-1, the true story of a Vietnam helicopter pilot and his crew. Please welcome Bob Ford back to the show. Hi, Bob.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm so glad you're here. 2017, it marked the 50 years since the Vietnam War, which is incredible. And the Oklahoma History Center, which is a division of the Oklahoma Historical Society, they recently installed an exhibit called Welcome Home, Oklahomans and the War in Vietnam. And you donated a Huey helicopter to the exhibit, which is amazing. So tell us how you even acquired the helicopter and then what that exhibit means to veterans.
But more than happy to tell you that. The director of the Oklahoma History Center read my book, and a year later he decided to have an exhibit at the Oklahoma History Center, and that's what started the whole thing in the first place. And he asked me to come along and be on board on the board of directors, so to speak. And after about 2 or 3 meetings, I said, and it had great plans, by the way, great plans for the exhibit. And I said, you know what would really be nice? If you had a helicopter, had a Huey that had a black cat on the nose right there. I almost said that thinking that if they said no, my feelings won't get hurt. Well, they said, are you kidding? I said, no, I'm not. You want me to get to work on it? And so I did. I have 2 crew chiefs that live in Weatherford, Texas. They found parts from 5 different Hueys, put it together, took a year, and the helicopter, when they got through, looked like it came off the assembly line of Bell Helicopter in Fort Worth, Texas. Wow. It was absolutely immaculate. The only thing that I asked for was that the big black cat and the full moon on the front of the helicopter, and that's what we did. We brought it to Oklahoma City, and it was such a hit that the Oklahoma legislature themselves, when they visited the exhibit, actually said, we want this as a permanent display. Do not take it down in 2 years when the Vietnam exhibit is gone. So it's a wonderful tribute to all the veterans. To best describe that Huey helicopter, when I gave a small speech at its opening for the dedication of the exhibit, I told them about a special forces guy that represented probably all the soldiers in Vietnam. And he said that that Huey represents every hug that he has ever given, every hug that he has ever received, because without that Huey, he never would have made it.
Wow.
And that represents so much to everybody that ever served. Not only the silhouette of it, but the sound of it, which you can't duplicate. And it's that plop, plop, plop sound. If you ever heard one, you'll never forget it. But that's what it means, and it's meant so much to everybody. It's going to be on permanent display.
Oh,
Very proud.
I love that it's going to be there for all the future generations, and that your book started the whole thing.
It did.
That's incredible. Yeah. Well, you have also received a lot of publicity because of a promise that you made in Vietnam. So what was that promise?
I get a lot of people to ask that, and I fill in a lot of blanks that I didn't write because they're within the 2 seconds that I made a commitment to God. I probably reviewed in my mind 10 minutes of thoughts, because things happen quick in combat.
Right.
It was the 3rd night of a 3-day-a-night ground attack, and I was been on the line on the perimeter when we're the only pilots that were issued M16s that fought on the perimeter during ground attacks, the only ones in the history of the Vietnam War. And so the 3rd night, I said, now God, if you could just get me out of this, I will. And I stopped right there. And I thought, now wait a minute, Ford. He knows when you're lying. He knows everything you're thinking.
Can't fool God, yeah.
That's right. And if you say missionary, preacher, or something to that effect, you're not going to, you may not live through this thing. He'll say, okay, you're not going to lie to me. And so the only thing I could think of, I extracted some Bible verse. I don't know how I came up with it, but I said, I'll stay in shape. I said, and I even said, that's the best I can do. I hope it's enough. And that's what I've done. As a result of that, I've stayed in shape the rest of my life and made sure I made that commitment.
Well, you are very healthy and very in shape, so that you kept your promise.
I did. I sure did.
All right, so I'm excited to see this. You
Yes.
carry a customized black cat coin.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about the significance, and I would love to see it.
I have one with me, and the coin is called a challenge coin, and it dates back to the Revolutionary days when they carried them to identify their unit. Well, now they have coins to identify the unit that you are with out of pride and respect for those you served with. And so when I had this made, and it looks like just like the black cat and the full moon on the front of the helicopter we flew, I said, you know, I asked the guy, could you duplicate that? And he said, yes. Then I thought, well, what could I put on the back? And so I took off my wings off my dress green uniform, scanned it, sent it to the guy. I said, if you can reproduce the aviator wings on the back, I'll buy some from you. And that's what he did. Those are Army aviator wings on the back. And so I also included my tour of duty, July 67, July 68, my call sign, Black Cat 21, and my rank, lieutenant. So
That is so neat.
take a look.
What a great reminder and a great tribute
It
to
is.
carry with you every day.
Thank you.
That's a great looking coin.
Mm-hmm.
This is so cool. Well, there is quite a literary canon in the Vietnam War. How is your story unique? I mean, I love that this is a part of it.
Thank you very much. Well, I didn't realize how unique we were until I had some feedback, and those that had read the manuscript said, my gosh, you know, you guys were really unique, because on a history sense, there was never a detachment that far north in Vietnam during the Vietnam War that fought against the North Vietnamese every day. Mm-hmm. And there was never one right exactly at the time that stayed that far north. And so I thought, well, you know, there is a little bit of history to that, I must admit. And so as a result, it was a unique situation. There's no question about it.
Yeah. Well, so how do you hope that your story will impact readers, including, you know, former Vietnam vets, or you know, their family and friends, or you know, people like me who are just learning about the Vietnam War?
When I first wrote the manuscript, my daughter went to Kinko's and put about 40 of them together, and I thought, well, this is it. You know, this is the best I'll ever do. And I thought, my gosh, here's my name in print. It would look really nice. So I distributed them out to a lot of different people. Mm-hmm. From age 12, by the way, all the way up to World War II guys. And almost 100% said, I never knew this story. We never heard anything good that came out of Vietnam.
Right.
We never knew what you guys did. Even the hardcore veterans that were special forces, the guys that were long-range reconnaissance patrol guys, the real hardcore veterans that read it said, you know, Ford, we never knew what you guys said in that cockpit. And you did good every day. I said, we had no idea there was something good that came out of this. Mm-hmm. I had a 28-year-old school teacher read it who didn't know anything about the Vietnam War, nothing in history, and she said, I had no idea the story about you guys. I had no idea what you did. I never even heard about a helicopter pilot. So you bet, I hope that this story gets out, because the 94-year-old World War II guy stopped me in front of the post office and said, Bob, this story, if it was read by the United States citizens, they will have a complete different view about the Vietnam veteran and the Vietnam War. I said, his name was Doc Dotter. I said, now Doc, say that again. And he repeated it. I said, dang, coming from you, I'm just really humbled. I really was humbled by what he had to say to me. It meant so much, and he meant it. And so if the story got out, people would have an awfully good view about the Vietnam War and the men that fought it.
A totally different respect.
Every one of us that served, we served with honor and dedication to our country. We really did. And I had another person, well, I've had several people say, boy, there ought to be a movie of this. I said, out of humility, I said, And he said, no. The story of all you guys that served, all you guys that crewed and flew, it ought to get out. I said, well, if you say it that way, I'd be for that.
Oh, I think a lot of us would love to see that. That'd be incredible. Well, so what would you say is the primary takeaway from your book? Because, I mean, it's a tremendous tribute to the people who fought in Vietnam.
The primary takeaway, for one thing, people ought to tell their story that we're in Vietnam. Tell them about how you trained. Training is a big part of everybody's commitment to serve. But tell your kids what you did. I always tell people there's two reasons I wrote this book. And two was to honor the men I served with and tell my kids what the heck I did. I never told them. I didn't have time. There were too much, well, you'll find out.
Right.
I had too much fun raising my kids, and we didn't, after shooting some basketball goals or hunting quail or fishing or going on a hike, it didn't matter. You didn't say, sit down over here a second. There's a couple of war stories I want to tell you.
Right.
Well, you didn't have time to do it. They're too much fun. And when I was writing the book, I knew I was doing something right when I'd send a chapter or two to my daughters, and they would call back, and my oldest one's kind of sentimental, and she'd be crying.
Wow.
I said, hey, what's wrong, sweetheart? She said, Dad, I had no idea you did this. I said, well, I didn't get around to it.
That's amazing. What a neat experience for them to learn that their father's a hero. I mean, and be able to look back on all the things that you've accomplished in serving your country. That's incredible.
Thank you.
Well, so resources for veterans, they've come a long way since the 1970s, but I think we can all agree that they still have a long way to go. So how can people help out?
Great question. You can do the first thing that I did. The first thing I did way back in 1990, I went to the 3rd grade class and talked to them about Veterans Day. And then I had a few photos I put up on the wall, 10 or so. And I said, okay, you have any questions? And they didn't say anything. I said, okay, girls and boys, now, you know there's no such a thing as a dumb question in this man's army, don't you? And I was teasing them, and I got kind of a smile and a laugh just like you did. Yeah. And then, poof, they all started asking questions. It was wonderful. If any veteran thinks that he doesn't have something to contribute, he's wrong.
Right.
You go to the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th grade class, or any class, go to a history class in high school, it doesn't matter. You go there and ask the teacher, would it be okay for me to tell you a little bit about the Vietnam War and how I served and what I did? You can't believe how good it is for you and them. It's the most rewarding hour and 15 minutes that you can imagine to listen to these kids ask questions. And they'll ask everything in the world too, by the way. Everything.
I bet. Well, that's so nice because they really get a personal connection with a veteran. And so when they do celebrate Veterans Day, it really kind of, you've got that personal
That's
connection there.
That's what they said, exactly. You said it just exactly what the kids said. That we never hear from a veteran, an actual veteran, and they said, and because they want to know everything then, you actually were in the Army? I said, you bet. I said, this is the Army, this is the uniform I wore. That's what you wore? I said, that's right. What do you want to know about it? Well, what's that patch? What's that? They want to know every little thing. They want to hear from a veteran. And you better do it now because you may not.
Right.
Time's going by.
Absolutely. Take the opportunities while you can. Well, and I'm sure the first thing I thought when you were talking about your uniform was I'm sure it still fits because you've kept your promise about staying in shape. So I'm sure all your uniforms still fit.
It does. I'm proud to, I am proud to wear it. And I just learned the other day that there's only 21% of those that served in Vietnam, in country, what we call in country. Mm-hmm. Only 21% of us are still alive. Wow. And the reason for that is it's just the conditions that were present there, the unsanitary conditions, the Agent Orange had an effect. Those that were killed and wounded had a hard time. And there's a lot of problems, of course, with any war, but for us, only 21% are still alive. And so when you look at that, those that are left ought to feel obligated to let people know.
Right. We need to connect while we have the chance.
That's right.
Well, so what are your remaining goals for this book?
My goals would be for every person, I started to say to read this thing, but pretty lofty goals. But really, my goals are just to let people know what we did. It really is. Because all of us served with honor, and we all volunteered to do it. Now, there were some draftees that probably ended up in our aviation detachment and company. There's probably so, but they had to volunteer to get there once they were drafted. Once they got into the service, they had to volunteer to be with us and be a crew chief, a door gunner, or in maintenance. And so I want everybody to know that those that served in the Army during that period of time served with honor. And they served with honor and dedication to our country, and it lasts till today.
Well, I hope that that goal and all of your other goals with your story in your book, I hope that they're all attained, because it's been really wonderful to hear your story, and congratulations on the success of your book.
Thank you very much.
And all the good things that are coming from it. So be sure to get a copy of Black Cat 2-1, the true story of a Vietnam helicopter pilot and his crew. I'm going to take some pictures of this coin before you leave. Bob, thank you so much.
That was yours.
Thank you. I will treasure it. We'll see you next time on Page Turners. This is so cool.